So here we are, TIC, which actually, yeah, it sounds quite good, that TIC. Therapist in Conversation, a small conversation today, but we are doing it in the afternoon for a change. So, what we're doing as far as this interesting situation that we find ourselves in, where people can come to us, but we can't go to them unless we do it via Zoom or other media are available, I believe. Who knows? Because I'm not technologically okay with that. But anyway, as Angela knows quite well. So we are not really given a clear go-ahead because actually there are no clear lines of communication going on. When 1 minute we're having to be quarantined coming back from places like Spain, and then the next minute they've changed their mind because Spain have put their foot down and said we're not going to give you any more of this, that, the other. So it's one of those things that the general public are confused. We're supposed to be able to know what we're doing, but actually we're not being told anything either. So I want to kind of discuss what's going on with us all with this idea of being in the tween time, in that twilight zone. And yeah, it really is. Do not adjust your sets. You have entered the twilight zone. And yeah, how are we all doing with this? So let's go for a conversational one. Just dive in.
Just diving in. So I think what you were trying to say earlier on is that other video conferencing facilities are available. So you're not just using the Zoom aspect.
Yeah, something like that.
So I think it's been a really interesting time. So I'm really happy that I'm with the FHT, so that's the Federation of Holistic Therapists, and I'm with the Kinesiology Federation, and they're both keeping us really up to date with what we're allowed to do, when we're allowed to do it, and all that kind of stuff. And that's been really helpful. My challenge at the moment, having just this morning had a phone call from someone asking to come and have a session face-to-face, when my decision was I wasn't going to open for as long as I've got to wear the masks and the face screens and all the rest of it. But I'm now thinking, have I now got to actually start thinking about opening up? So I've spent the morning knee deep in disclaimers and pre-checks and screening and trying to work out exactly what I've got to do. And there's quite a lot to get through. So I'm still in that limbo point at the moment myself, trying to work out what's the bare minimum, what's the best case scenario, and where do I want to sit in the middle there somewhere, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It really does. Vonnie, what's going on with you? Are you, because you're actually out there doing it now again, aren't you?
Yes, I'm now face-to-face, but that's because of the size of my room. And it also means that everybody that I work with is got a boundary of a therapy bubble. So everybody, including me, is only going to therapy or going home or going to Sainsbury's. There's jail, there's an exit, there's an entrance. I am probably more boundaried than I've ever been, so I stop dead on 50 minutes, which means that there's a 10-minute gap in between them and the next person. If anybody goes to a hospital or starts mixing in any way, the agreement is they come and tell me, they go back to Zoom. Credit where credit's due, everybody is working with it really, really well. But I'm still doing Zoom, I'm doing phone, and I'm doing face-to-face. So I have to keep on making sure that I put in my diary which is which, but I wouldn't do it if my room was small. Yeah. You know, I've got a really good size room. And it's working. And bear in mind, I don't want to be the therapist that leaves them so confused with my own confusion over what's going on. So they've worked with it. You know, if somebody's gone into, I'm thinking of certain medical professions where they've gone and been in a hospital, they've automatically contacted me prior to an appointment and said, you know, can we make the next one by Zoom and the next one so that I get a 14-day quarantine. So I'm really impressed. I guess it shows how much they want to stick with face-to-face, that they're abiding so strongly by all the boundaries that I'm putting in. So, you know, It's not easy because it's unprecedented. So we're all trying to work with whatever we've got, and the messages and the confusion is just, it's unbelievable, really, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, basically, I was in for an appointment at a hospital recently, and to tell you the truth, there was no distancing with the nursing staff. They were all clubbing together, coming down the corridor in groups of 3 and 4 together, with their outdoor clothes on, walking out to the car park and doing that, no masks or anything like that. And all the patients have to mask up and be in certain places and have to wear their mask from the house till they get into the hospital, while they're in the hospital, and then back out again, back to the house. And that was what they asked us to do. So, but while we were in there, everybody was kind of milling about. All the people were getting pushed along by people who were not on, you know. And it's like, I understand that. It's very difficult to keep that kind of barrier nursing style up when you're dealing with a lot of patients. But they actually are only taking 4 patients a day for things. And you had to go and get a COVID test the morning before. So I had a test. It's disgusting. They stick that thing so far up your nose, it's like getting mummified by the Egyptians. And the cotton bud leaves you dry. So it's not good.
You're making me think I'm just going to stay at home until it's all passed by.
This is it. We're in a quandary because there's a lot of fear-based stuff going on out there about what we can do and what we can't do. And people are getting really ratty about it. Not just ratty, they're getting verbally abusive about it. You know, and I think that it's one of those things that you see double standards happening all the time. And I understand that basically when you go into a hospital, all the staff that are in there already are in an ivory tower atmosphere to a certain extent. They've all got positive pressure ventilation in their theatres, in some of their wards, doing the whole things that they need to do. But there's this idea that, you know, if you're going to keep a 2-metre distance on the outside and you're in a hospital, which is where the public are going in and out of, surely the 2-metre distance should be there too. And the person who's wheeling you up and down should be in a noddy suit. Not a noddy with the bell on the top, with the whole, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Although that might be good fun. But anyway, so Trudi, what about you? Because you're starting up again as well, aren't you?
I went back to work on the 13th of July when they said we could. But I spent hours and hours and hours reading guidelines from the government, guidelines from different associations, and speaking to other colleagues and stuff like that. We're supposed to leave half an hour between each appointment and have the room ventilated and do a deep clean and have obviously fresh everything. So, and I have to wear a face shield and or a mask, but I wear face shield. And I'm only seeing, when I the first week I saw one client a day rather than, you know, going mad. I thought I'm just going to take it slowly and see how it goes, see how my clients feel, see how I feel, and just get that balance. And then I've been sort of building it up, but slowly and just taking my time. But deep cleaning and changing everything that needed changing was interesting. And I take everybody's temperature on arrival. They have paperwork emailed to them beforehand, and they have to send it back beforehand. So yes, lots of changes, but it's working. It's okay.
Susan, what about you?
The same sort of ideas of all the deep cleaning, wiping the surfaces, and wearing the face mask. We're only doing reflexology at the moment, and I have 2 runners, so we're sort of doing hips and down. But when we do or go up to the Indian head and sort of the shoulder area, the face area, we're sort of still deciding that's not going to happen until possibly mid-August. And we give the option, obviously, for our clients, obviously, to wear the face mask, although it is uncomfortable for them. But the thing we found as well, ask all these extra little questions, you know, such as, have you had, you know, C19? Have you been abroad? How is your temperature? So we've had to change our consultation sheets to make sure we get the right information before we even allow a client to come into our studio, or we go to them, because that's the other thing as well. We have to protect ourselves. We wear the face shield, of course, when we're doing our reflexology, and make sure that everything is cleaned and cleaned and cleaned. It's just so important at the moment.
That's
You know,
kind of an interesting thing, because to tell you the truth, I would not think of taking my temperature before I went out to see someone, ever.
Yeah.
I mean, I you know.
So from what I understand, taking the temperature is not essential. You can do it if you choose to do it, and it's part of all the trace and protect stuff. So that's part of your disclosure and all the rest of it, or disclaimer, sorry. But I don't think it's a necessity to take the temperature. But that's interesting, Sue, that you're actually allowed to now.
We haven't had anyone refuse, and everyone just seems to accept that that's correct.
Normal.
That's what we do. Yeah, absolutely. So
and I guess that's the difference between Scotland and England then, that you're allowed to go to your client. So that must be the difference then. So Scotland, we're not allowed to do mobile. We're allowed to reopen our own clinics and treatment rooms, and if it's in our home, then that's fine if it's set up specifically as a treatment room, but we're not allowed to go to our clients. So that's interesting. I didn't realise that was the case in England, that mobile sessions are allowed.
Yeah, and but we're only sort of the lower end, and it won't be till possibly mid-August. We're just seeing what happens, because with the lockdown again with Spain, I can just see that we'll get the full lockdown here again, and it's just going to affect us all business-wise. So
well, when you think about it, they've just locked down Leicester. They quarantined Leicester, just that one city. So they may well just do it on a city by city basis if it starts to spike again to begin with. I mean, I think we're still at that 1 hour less than 1 at the moment in Scotland.
I thought most of the country was now R less than 1.
I
must admit, I don't know. I just...
The whole premise of that was that basically for R less than 1, then we're just about there's nothing there to worry about.
My understanding from that is if the R was less than 1, it's not going to exponentially grow and spread, I think. Whereas if it's more than 1, then it's that way. If one person will give it to one person, or one person will give it to 2 people.
Yeah.
So if and then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So I think that's more the understanding of the R number.
Yeah, a bit like
I'm seeing other people nodding, so I think I've got something right there.
Yeah. I mean, it's not exactly the most clear, again, with the clarity situation, it's not exactly the clearest set of things. They say traffic light system. We have that on food too, and nobody understands it. But it's one of those things that, are we going to continue this? How long are we going to have to continue this? And is it ever going to go away? We're not being told these things.
There's some big offices have announced that they're not actually allowing their staff back in until summer next year.
Well, to tell you the truth, I'm not surprised, because with all the crap that they're going to have to do, pardon the pun, to clean and to do the deep cleans of everything, it's going to cost them more money than actually bringing their staff back in.
I think the people that have worked from home have the companies have realised that they're saving money by having people working from home.
This is true.
And that it works.
It works. But it is a trust thing, because you are going to get some people, but of course, if you've got some people who are swinging their leg because they're working at home and they just want to, then that's a mindset. That's a mindset thing. And the company, the managers are going to realise, because their work's not going to be getting done. So
I think what a lot of the companies are finding it's the other way around, in the fact that people assumed that their staff wouldn't work well, and they didn't know how they would manage staff if they're not beside them.
Yeah.
And what they've now had is 4 months of it where they've proved themselves that it does work and people will do the job.
Interestingly,
if you trust grown-ups to be grown-ups, then they usually are grown-ups.
But it's interesting that it's kind of knocked that authoritarian mindset of leadership right on its ass. Because Angela and I have been in a a thing where we're talking about leadership programs and the different ways of leadership. And the guy who is running it is very open and unstructured with that. And it's very much into the Covey situation of, do you know what? I'm not going to micromanage you. I'm actually going to let you do what you do. I'm going to tell you what it is that I would expect for myself to do. And then you go ahead and do it your own way, as long as it gets done in a timely fashion and it's done well. So I think that's what it is. But we've been having, since we started computers in the 80s, we've been having this idea, the whole thing was, yeah, you'll be able to work from home. You don't have to go to the office anymore. You can just sit in your kitchen and do this with your jammy bottoms on and your shark slippers. But basically, you don't have to come into the office. But we still, because it's habitual and we've got this mindset, you have to go out to work.
But you know, I'm loving the fact that I spent many years doing the working from home was an option for me in my corporate business and my corporate life, that now that when this actually did hit and I was able to start doing therapy over the webcam, for me it felt comfortable and it felt normal. And I know a lot of people have got to that stage eventually, but I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. I know how to do this. I can do this from day one. So I think for me it's been so useful.
I think some people have struggled being at home when they're so used to being in a corporate office environment, and people do. There is a limit now with the corporate companies on how many people they'll let in per day, and all these factors have to be put into place, from housekeeping to general office to getting desks ready. But some people do not like being at home and working. They just cannot handle the four-wall syndrome, and they feel that if they're not in an office environment, they're unable to complete their work. So I think, it's definitely a mindset, but I also think it's what people are used to. And I think some people actually need to see other people. They cannot work by themselves. They don't know how to, because they've been so used to working as a group.
Going back to my old work, my old job as a veterinary nurse, it's a bit like depending on what harness you put on an animal as to what work it's going to do that day. There are some, when we used to work with stallions, they'd be absolute babes if they had the right bridle on. As soon as you put that bridle on, it says, I'm going to a mare. You have something on your hands that is just not going to, he's all over the shop. He's got his head up, his hooves are up, and the tail's gone and the whole thing. And you can't keep a hold of him until he gets to that mare. You take that bridle off and put another one on, and he's like, yeah, okay. And that's kind of like the corporate suit situation. The suit.
So how much then, from that perspective, can we help people with mindsets?
Exactly. I think it's got to
if
do
you're
with
looking at
that
different
mental,
bridles.
with the mental, which bridle are you wearing today, dear? But maybe we shouldn't use that one because we don't have a sex therapist on board. But well,
you're going to edit that bit out later, yeah.
Well, you come from where your experience lies. You got to go with, and so I'm getting myself into trouble.
For the next one.
You're never going to look a horse again the same way.
No, a whole different wardrobe.
It has been really, really hard for a lot of people, because there's also a lot of companies that are actually dissolving themselves, making their staff redundant, and then setting up another business and actually not bringing those old staff in. So I've got people that are loving it at home and actually feeling more productive. I've got people that absolutely loathe being stuck within the four walls. I've got people that are struggling because they've had their kids around, and the separation between the blurred line of walking out of an office and shutting your door behind you to actually doing it all in the house and having that struggle. So I think I've actually heard every single dynamic that you can possibly have from every single angle in relation to people and how they're working. And I work on the basis of accepting our lack of control. That's my entire thing. If we accept the mindset of what we can control rather than what we can't control, and work with it in a better way, that's what's really helping everybody that I'm working with. And that helps me as well. That's something, you mentioned the hospital, Leslie, it's very different down here in London. I had my hospital remission test on Sunday, and there was no one in that hospital. I mean, it's a massive hospital. I actually took a picture because the corridor was so empty, and the corridor's almost a mile long, and the only people I saw was a receptionist, the stenographer, and the stenographer's assistant, and that was it. I didn't see another member of staff in the hospital at all. No masks, like you said, Leslie, and I've got them standing over me, and I've got them doing examinations on me, and there's no masks. There were gloves. That was it. And I saw 3 people, literally 3. And this hospital is extensively big. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic all over the country, because I think it's different for everyone in every way, and it's not knowing what's coming.
And I think that's part of the issue, is that there's no congruency. You know, there's this idea, and it's got to do with the trusting of who are the ones making the policies. And I think that we tend to be more careful here because, you know, we're Scottish and we can do that. And there's a little bit of friction that goes on. But I think it's also got to do with, you've got to listen to people. But at the same time, you've got that box in the corner where you've got the British government saying one thing, and then the Scottish government and the Welsh government and the Irish government saying another thing entirely. And we're all standing around going, oh, we're going to go this way. Oh, no, we're going to go that way. And it's like we're being taught herd mentality. I mean, we're getting the mindset of herd mentality. And the big stick is fear. And that's the thing that we've got to understand is that when we're dealing with it, when we see our clients, we have to first deal with that before we can get into giving them the idea that they actually have power of their own to deal with the mindsets that they're dealing with inside their own houses. So we got to get them in 2 minds to make 1 mind almost.
But I think echoing Vonnie, I'm pointing over there. I have no idea where on your screen Vonnie is at the moment. But Vonnie's point of, we need to know what we're doing and make it look as if that we know what we're doing, so we're not confusing our clients. So that's my point at the moment. Having had someone actually say to me, can I do a face-to-face session? I'm now trying to figure out what I've got to do. And once I've done all of that, I will then go back to the person and say, yes, okay, I'm now going to open. But I'd have said to her, look, give me your name and contact details and I'll get back to you once I've worked out what I need to do, because I'm not going to go back to her until I know exactly what information I need from her, what PPE equipment I need to have here, what cleaning products I need to go and get, and all of that aspect. But so I think it is very, very important that once we're then working with clients, whether it's face-to-face or over the cameras, that we're still putting ourselves across as experts, as qualified, fully learned up as to what we're going to be doing, and actually delivering our therapies in the best way we possibly can without that confusion factor.
Yeah, but we have to get them, by doing that, we have to actually go through that essence of what they're carrying with them energetically before we can actually get into the meat of the problem, of the issue that they're bringing. And I think,
honestly say, and I'm not saying everybody should agree with me on this, the way I have handled it is I know what I'm supposed to do. I refuse to look at the news. I can honestly say I haven't looked at the news for weeks and weeks and weeks. I've held on to the cleaning, I've held on to the distance, I've held on to how I can organise my building so that it works for my clients, because otherwise separating my own feelings of confusion, which I won't let myself have, which is why I don't watch the news, means that I am not on a par with my clients being confused, because otherwise it's harder to almost separate as a therapist my stuff from theirs, so I make sure I haven't got any of it. And that's the best way I've managed it. Does that make sense to you?
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, I must admit, I haven't watched the news. I hear Andrew does, so my husband, so he comes down and tells me things, but then that's his interpretation of it. and he will go to the nth degree. So I kind of knock 3 or 4 degrees out of that and say, yeah, okay, I'll just use the common sense route, and I'll take that route and just do what I'm doing, and just keep on doing what I'm doing, because basically I'm only seeing people via this medium at the moment. Nobody's coming to see me, which is probably just as well, because I don't have the space to do what I have to be able to do here, and allowing them to do it in their own living room. For me, and I was saying this to someone the other day, I see people understanding now that they have to take self-responsibility for what they need to do for themselves now. It's not just a case of, here's my trouble, do something with it, fix it for me. It's a case of, okay, in order for us to work together, in order for us to do this, we're going to have to get you to understand what you do with your space and with yourself. And that's getting through. And I'm starting to see people, because now with the disclaimers and things, my consent form is now like 4 pages long, because I have guidelines that I have to put in, and I have these things, these are the questions that you'll be asked, this is what you have to do. And you have to send this back to me, because I can't see you or talk to you about this until I've got a photograph of your signed consent form, and I will go through these questions with you when I see you. And that's okay. And to tell you the truth, that has actually allowed people to understand that when they come to us, there's an implicit contract there that they will be doing something for themselves, that they have to do the work. And I think that's probably one of the better things that's come out of this.
Well, I've kind of been doing that since I started therapy, which is, yeah, I am not here to fix you, but I get your point. Yeah, I totally take it on board.
We get people coming to us, and it's like, oh well, you're the healer, heal me. Well, what are you doing to make yourself in the dis-ease?
Yeah.
What do you mean? It's not my fault. And you give them like a prescription of, go out for a walk, look at this, do that, do the other. And they sit and watch Jeremy Kyle instead. Well, they can't do it now, but that kind of thing. So they're feeding their dis-ease. But now they're actually starting to understand, because I think we've got a common enemy now. It's not just us, it's everybody else as well. And it's a case of, there's always something that I can do to change this situation for me. And I think that's what we can do, is allow them to see that and to be aware of it, be consciously aware of it, that they can actually, they've got the potential to be able to look after themselves and change their mindset.
Well, that's the aim of therapy.
Yeah.
So it's that comment you said earlier on, it's being in control of what you can control, and understanding how you respond to what you can't control.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that I managed to practice that one very, very well, considering what I've been through. So it was almost a consistent practice, almost literally hour after hour, can't control what's going on. And that's what cancer does to you, because it's so controlling, because the whole situation, your body is controlling you, and everything that you do in relation to what you have to do is non-stop hospital visits. You have to do this, you have to do that. So when you go through something that big, the art of being able to say, and I'm very proud, because it really allowed me to appreciate self-awareness more than at any other time in my life. The ability in the worst situations to say, with a smile on my face, at least I know my head. I've got my self-awareness. I can accept my lack of control here. And that is, it was such a profound thing for me to use that in the worst situations, that actually helped me not panic, not get stressed, not get anxious. I'm not going to go into the situations, but they were big situations. And to smile, having that armor, is the most amazing thing when you actually have it, to be able to use it in the worst situations that you can be in. So for me, it's become so natural to do that and accept that. So, you know, it's the art of what I do. I've learnt my own art.
Isn't it that kind of paradoxical thing, though, that we now have a consciously aware, tangible argument for saying it will work when you let it go. When you let go, it will all fall into place.
Yeah.
And it's that chasing that tail, hanging on to that tiger's tail of you have to control the beast, you have to control what's ever going on. But actually, we spend our lives doing that and we miss so much of the other stuff. And I think that basically when it comes to what we do, that's why we're here. Because basically there are so many people hanging on that tiger's tail. I mean, there's a Confucius quote that says, know yourself and ride a tiger, too scared to jump off and too afraid to stay on. So you're kind of caught in the middle there. And it's like, but if you let go, you know, tiger will just go away because he's got you off his back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think some people, it's the fear of the unknown as well. Some people, I think, are scared maybe of making changes or letting go.
Yeah, but that's a mindset thing that we're all involved in dealing with on some level or another. I mean, Trudi with Reiki, that's going to be a very gentle and almost subliminal thing. The shifting energy that will come out of that. Although I do know that can be quite a forceful shift on occasion, shall we say. But it's people's expectations of what we do, who we are, and how we do it.
I was thinking of the Reiki as well, because I was thinking, Trudi, when I think of somebody having Reiki, they're giving over complete control to you. And I think that that's a very powerful thing to actually acknowledge. One, with the trust that they have in you to take control, even though I know you're not actually touching them. The fact that they give that to you is a very, if I was the therapist in that situation, I'd be highlighting that over and over again, their ability to just give you control over the entire situation. Because I think it's a major enlightening moment when somebody allows themselves to do that, but they don't necessarily appreciate that that's what they're actually doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah,
it's a different way of looking at it and using it in a way where it works to enhance the client's ability to be comfortable in your company and trust you to do what you need to do, in the same way for you, Susan, the same way for you, for all of us. If you
for all of us with our therapists, absolutely. They trust us, they tell you your history, and they're expecting us to help them along, to heal, to give advice. And it's a huge responsibility as a therapist. Huge responsibility. People look at us as if we are the healers and we can heal them in maybe sometimes just one therapy, and unfortunately we can only help. And it normally is definitely a course. Definitely.
What are you thinking, Angela?
I was thinking, could you see the cogs turning? I was just thinking about the Reiki aspects of, I'd never actually thought of it in those terms of giving complete control. My experiences of Reiki, I've kind of gone along out of nosiness, and I've just gone like, do you know what? Yeah, just got on with it. But actually me doing that is giving that complete control. But I'd never actually thought of it in those terms. Yeah, and as a control freak, that's an interesting thing that I've given that.
Yeah. Do you know how many people say that to me in my room or having any kind of appointment? I never thought of that. And I say, no, because that's not your role. My role is to help you think like that, to help you recognize that. So thanks for the smile there, Angela. Yeah,
it's really interesting. It's just turning on its head, isn't it? And looking from a different perspective, and actually that's what we all do, isn't it? We look at it from a different perspective and guide our clients to do the same.
Micro awareness,
as opposed to micromanagement.
Yes, it's exactly that, because when we actually appreciate the tiniest things, they're not tiny at all. you know, somebody coming to therapy is a really courageous thing to do for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So my baseline for anyone that speaks to me is they're proactive at wanting to come in, they've got emotional intelligence and awareness to recognize that they want to change, they're motivated to actually take those steps, and they show the commitment to themselves by consistent appointments. And for me, that's a mind-blowing positive foundation for anybody's psychology. They don't see that, but when I point all those things out to them, because it's based on fact and evidence, then they sit there and think, oh, I see what you mean, I never thought of it like that. And that's when I come back with, no, that's my role to help you think like that. And it's just pulling it down to the literal tiniest bits of how somebody presents, how they work, how they think, every word. I'm sorry, I get permanently blown away by the power of self-awareness, and I always will to the day I die, because I find it absolutely incredible, the changes that it can create for anybody.
I think it's important, particularly just now, because of being in this twilight zone, that we are totally self-aware, because if we don't have a direction or a compass point with the map that we're in, the territory that we're in, if we're not self-aware, we're going to be totally lost, just blowing in the wind, and our clients will be the same, and we're gonna fall by the wayside. And it's one of those things that if we stay self-aware and we stay totally on track with what we're doing and what we see our clients coming in with, then we'll be able to work through their initial fears, because that's just an extra layer now. This, I don't know what's going on with this, and have you done this, and have you bleached everything within an inch of his life, and you know, are you going to wrap me up in bleach towels and do this and do that, you know, the whole thing. And you have to actually go through that and then say, okay, now this is where we are, this is what potential you have to actually make things better now, and then allow them to actually let that sink in. And if it sinks in with us, it will sink in with them.
Yeah, I really think it's all about trust, isn't it? And you know, your clients need to trust us that we know what we're doing, and we're doing it to the best of our ability, whether that's, you know, cleaning, leaving enough time, using fresh towels, linen, whatever we're doing, and the therapy, it's trusting. And that's why they come to who they choose to come to, because it's all about trust, which is what Vonnie's saying, and being aware of themselves, and, you know, allowing you to take it on board. So,
yeah, we have to take a chance. We have to actually, in order to move forward, we have to take a chance. We have to take that step, and we have to be with people who are going to be able to say, yeah, all right, I've got you, even if it's just virtually. I've got you. Don't worry. If you fall, we'll help you back up again. Because that's what we do.
Can I just ask you all, how have you found, because this has been my hardest thing to do, and the difference between face-to-face and Zoom. So, like I said, I'm still doing Zoom appointments. The hardest thing I find is the ending. Whereas I'm used to somebody leaving, when it's on Zoom, it is horrible. It's like I end up waving and saying, I'll speak to you soon, because the physical aspect of them moving away, it's gone. And when I don't even like being the first one that presses the end of the meeting button. I almost want to give them the control to be able to do that, because it's so different. Angela, that's really what I know what's going on in your head there.
No, I've got one client, and it was lovely, because their partner set the call up and sat them in front of the screen, and then we did the session. And at the end of the session, they said goodbye, and they got up and they walked out the room, leaving the screen. That just came to my head as you were saying that, and I thought that's just perfect.
And now it's time to leave the room.
I wish mine all did that.
But it is a really strange one, because you get to that point, and it's even doing like a coffee chat or whatever on this, you're like, okay, so we're going to wrap up now, because I've got another call to go to, and bye.
Yeah.
It's a really false ending, isn't it, to a certain extent? And,
Yes,
and then
what
you
it
get
feels.
you get the bye as then someone presses the leave button and they're still waving because they've not pressed the actual confirm you want to leave, and then it's bizarre.
Bit of adaptation over time, I think, and it'll get easier and easier to do, but I don't think I'll actually ever enjoy it. You know, even meeting clients in my workplace that I'm meeting them for the first time, I'm so used to them putting their hand out to shake my hand, and it feels like you're rejecting them. So it's almost consciously saying and acknowledging we're in a very unusual situation, and I'm almost sorry that I'm not doing what I normally would do, but how do you feel about what I'm doing? You know, and just exploring it in that way. And thankfully every single one has been, it's absolutely fine, I get it, I understand it, but it's just not the way it was.
And
that
I guess your
adaptation.
face-to-face ones, you're not going to shake hands as they're leaving either anymore, or give them a hug that you might have done before. But then I suppose, how is ending a Zoom call any different to how we've ended phone calls for
Yeah.
however many decades that we've ended phone calls from? You say goodbye and you put the phone down.
You just
Or
can't
push
see
the
the other
button now.
person when you put the phone. You know, you just can't. You know. I think the leave call or end call is putting the receiver down. You know, and it gets to that point where, you know, you do it, no, you do it, no, you do it, no, you do it, no, you do it. And you're like, okay, I'll do it because I've got something else to do. Bye.
And you're back to your teenage years, yeah?
And that's really, really hard when you know and you sense that the person in the Zoom call isn't ready to end the appointment.
Yeah.
That's the bit that I pick up on, because I've sat there and there's a particular person I'm thinking of, and sometimes you can tell if they're in a temper, it'll be them that presses the end button. But if they want to continue, they give me the control, and I know they give me the control because they're not pressing it. So I'm sitting there and it's not comfortable for me, because it feels like I'm shutting the other person down, and that goes against the grain of anything that I do. So I can hear myself going, right, I'm going to say goodbye now, so I'm going to shut the meeting down just so that you know, and I'll speak to you soon. But it's not comfortable because I know that they're leaving the screen open and waiting for me to do it. And that's completely different to somebody just see you next week and walking physically out of a room. I don't enjoy that
So
aspect of
have
it.
you ever had a situation where the person's been in the room with you and not wanted to leave the room? Or have they always just left because the time's up? I'm just wondering if it was a psychological mindset thing for you rather than for them.
Yes. Well, you see, in 18 years of doing this, there are a few people in my memory that would probably be there for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. So I consciously make sure that when it's coming up to the 50-minute mark, I'll consciously come in and just say, it's really important that we don't go down that particular route, because I can tell by what they're going to talk about that it's going to extend
not just be 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's not going to. And it could take them down some really deep emotions where it'd be totally inappropriate for them at that point, because I'll have to shut it down. But I'm also aware that that's a very clever avoidance. So a lot of people will leave the most important thing that they want to discuss literally to the last 5 minutes because they've got an escape route.
Yeah.
They've got the door. So I'm aware of that. So I always, if they do start down that, I'll instantly come in and just say, look, it's important for you to be aware that actually maybe we leave this to the next appointment, because I can see where you're going to go and we're going to finish and wrap up in 5 minutes. So it's an old avoidance trick that they're not even necessarily aware of when they do that, Angela.
So from that perspective, are you then using those techniques on the video call, or are you finding that those techniques don't seem to translate as well?
No, because it's usually somebody that keeps on talking and talking and talking in the room, whereas the person that I've got in my head is sitting there in silence at the end of the appointment.
Okay.
And it's that discomfort of it's just like shutting them off. I guess when the screen shuts down, it feels like a physical shutting off. And for my personality, I'm just not used to shutting somebody off when I see them sitting there deliberately leaving the screen open.
It's kind of like a guillotine instead of a door closing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, it feels too sharp.
It's the energy of the, okay, that's it, bam, you're done.
Yeah.
There's actually no parting. Again, there is no twilight zone for this, because the twilight zone, when they end a consultation face to face, is you see them leaving the room, you see them closing the door,
Yeah.
and that you've got that actual active ending. For this, I mean, computers were never meant to be polite. They were never meant to be caring. They're machines. They do that. It's like, you know,
it's ones and zeros. It's on or it's off.
Yeah. And it's basically the Matrix. So it's a case of, I don't know, you don't know what they're going to be doing or feeling when after they've left your door. They could go out and go into the alleyway and have a tantrum or kick a bin or something. Or they could just go and float quite naturally. Because we always leave the important stuff to the end, because we don't really want to say it in case it brings up something that we really don't want to talk about anyway, or it's going to make someone else feel bad or not. It depends. It's a fear thing. Again, it's like one of those things where, you know, and being fearful about stopping it, but we have to have, this is why this twilight zone for me is really not good, because this Capricorn thing in me is like, it has a start, it has an end. We have no end. We don't even have a start now. It's just this kind of elongated elastic band that we don't even know who's on the either end of it, you know?
Are you getting to the whole what day of the week is it again?
Yes. Yes. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, is this Thursday? And then, no, the book says it's Wednesday, so it must be, you know? But it's one of those things that, for me, structure, particularly in my old job, was very, very important. And it's still important for us because we have time slots. We still have time slots. And although we can get through quite a lot, there's still stuff that, you know, maybe there's technological problems when you get in, which would be the equivalent of missing the bus or getting caught up by Auntie Sandra before she, you know, phoning you before you walk out the door, so you're not in time for your appointment. And then you expect that to be put on at the back, but of course it can't be put on at the back because there's somebody else in the queue. And that somebody else could be us waiting for our dinner, you know, because we need fed too. So it's one of those things that when we are doing this, there must be an expectation of this will end. It has to end. It's not going to be, you know, it's not going to be that, you know, I'm going to just leave the screen open and then Vonnie's going to come back in about half an hour's time and I'll be sitting there going, hi, I'm here. I just wanted to continue this conversation kind of thing. We are humans and we need to have this idea where there are expectations, and the expectation is I start at this time, I finish at that time, and what happens in between then, if it gets done, it gets done. If it doesn't get done, we'll talk about it later.
I'm sure we were getting to the point of expectations being a dirty word last time.
It was.
And now you're using them this time.
Yeah, but there are expectations and there are expectations. There are willful expectations and there are sensible expectations.
I'm wondering if it's more roundabout rather than the client's expectations. It's are we setting our boundaries as appropriately as we did when people actually came into our therapy rooms?
Yeah, mainly because they're coming into our houses now.
Well, technically they're still in my therapy room.
Yes. You could argue that it's more like receiving a guest and being a host in your house instead of being a therapist in your business kind of situation. But then I've never really had that much of a problem cutting people off. Ask anybody who knows me.
Vonnie, she'll give you lessons.
Well, I'm hanging on to the guillotine.
Okay, shutters down. The shop is now closed. Bang. maybe you should have a screen that you should be, you know, out to lunch or gone fishing or something like that. You can actually press the button and the screen share comes on. and sort of there's the end, you know.
Your
Or
session
one of
has
those.
ended.
Yeah, you can have a really good,
or
that's all, folks.
the Hollywood film, one of those choppers
Oh, the
that says
clapper
the end.
board.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's a bit frivolous and things like that, but we have to be able to do it so that we have time, because as you say, we have all things that if we're seeing a client face to face, we have to have the room ready. We have to be able to do that.
Oh, yeah, as Trudy's comment, you said, was it half an hour you're now leaving between to make sure that you can properly clean the place?
Yeah, a minimum of half an hour. Yeah.
And no matter how needy somebody is about what they want to do, there has to be this respectful distance of client and therapist.
Yeah.
It's the boundaries, isn't it?
Yeah, you can't blur the lines so much. So actually closing down the room is just another way of saying, okay, goodbye, see you next time. We'll make the appointment by email, or you'll already have your appointment. Make sure we pick up from where we left off.
I think the other thing is reiterating your start and your finish right at the beginning of the meeting. So you can say, hi, great to see you, blah, blah, blah. We'll be talking until whatever time, and then the meeting will finish at whatever time. So you're reiterating that at the beginning so they know what to expect. That word again. so that you don't feel bad when you say time is up, and and we'll
It's the delete. It's the end. I think it's psychologically for me, the word end, where it's end meeting, it's like what you said, Leslie. It's the guillotine. It's sharp. It's cold. It literally feels like that to me. But I know one thing, my 50-minute boundaries have been the best they've ever been in 17 years. I am so spot on that even I've been impressed with myself. And to say that is pretty remarkable for me, because normally I don't mind if I go over a couple of minutes, certain things take an extra couple of minutes, but I have been so impressed when it's dead on 50 minutes, every single appointment.
But let's face it,
It's setting the intention.
Those times in. We factor the getting yourself back together again, getting your clothes on if that's appropriate, getting your coat and
Leslie,
your hat on,
my clothes
Yeah.
on. Where are you going? I'm not doing that kind of session.
Me neither.
No. I mean, some people remove their underwear to have their reflexology. They have to put their shoes and socks on. Those are clothes.
Yes.
Some people have to take their trousers off if they have to sort of have a leg manipulated. Get your mind out of the gutters, girls. Come on.
You started it.
I know. I'm wicked that way. I know.
And it's interesting, Vonnie, when you're the person that's hosting the call, yours says end, but when you're the guest or the person that's attending the call, it says leave.
Yeah.
So it's very subtle, but when you give words power, I guess that's maybe the challenge.
That's exactly what it is. It's giving you the power to end the meeting for all.
As Leslie's hovering over the button.
Everybody's ending the meeting. This is the end.
And on that note, I know it's 1 minute to 5.
Yes, I'm watching. I think that we've twilighted our zone out of into submission. So I'm going to thank you all for coming on. Thank you for the laugh and the jollity, because I think we all need it. And we will see each other next month when we will be talking about grief. And it may well be a double header. Okay?
Okay.
So